I've been a Taekwondo fighter since the age of about 16. One summer's day, I decided to take my way down to the nearest Taekwondo center and start training. And ever since, it's been a part of who I am, my identity, etc., etc. I've been competing internationally since the age of 21. First international competition was in Germany. So every winter, every December, would go to the city of Stuttgart to fight in a German competition that is deemed to be, it's like a proving grounds. People fight in this competition just before they're about to enter big tournaments, or people from the national teams will fight here to gain experience. It was a very important competition full of dangerous fighters, the type of fighters that practice their whole life, in the mountains, out in the sticks, training. But the thing is that throughout my career, my family never really showed up to my competitions, my tournaments. And I don't say that to gain some sort of sympathy, but I say that because it creates an awkward situation where you might become national champion, you might become an Olympian even, but for some reason, your family are not in the culture of supporting you. What I'd find going around traveling competition my teams is that many other people, and typically people of other cultures, other ethnic groups, would have their parents there support in some way. Even if it's not the parents, maybe a sibling, maybe a cousin. They would have coolers of drinks. You see, in competitions, you're very likely going to be injured, so you need a lot of medical care. Things like cold therapy, KT tapes, bandages. I noticed that these people, as they support their athlete, they have all of these sorted out. Whereas myself, and to be honest with you, many others like me, usually have zero support. It's usually us out here on our own, doing it for ourselves. And again, I don't say that for sympathetic reasons. I don't even say it to blame my family. Unfortunately, there are just certain cultural traits that some people just don't understand. But the results typically is that the person who has a family like this often do not reach their full potential in whatever they try to do. Family support is very crucial. And people who don't have this support end up being very independent. But the problem with independence is that we are, as a species, very interdependent. We rely very much so on others, even though we don't even know it. Some of us might be ignorant to that fact and believe that our motivation, our drive, our inspiration solely comes from ourselves, and that's not true. As I walk through this park, I'm pretty sure the things that I'm absorbing are influencing me in some ways. So when I look at the fighters or the athletes that went on to be high performers in their field, the number one thing that I can see was that they had immense family support. And this also affects your determination, When you, for example, myself, when I would go to competitions by myself, I didn't really have that driving force that will make me somewhat responsible for my performance, if that makes sense. When you do things by yourself, for example, if you live by yourself, you try to make a little savings pot because you're only saving for yourself, really. You could go into that savings pot and take out how much you want whenever you want, because you're not really doing that for a person. No one is relying upon you. But for example, if you have a child, if you have children, you have a family, and that savings pot is not just about you, it's not just for you, it's for the whole family. You would think twice before you just willingly go inside that pot and buy whatever frivolous item you want to buy. And this is the same sensation when you do things by yourself. When you go to competitions by yourself, for example, it's like having cheerleaders. With cheerleaders and the celebrations and the salutations that they have for you, that is a motivating force, and it's a factor that could decide whether you win or lose. In the final round of a competition, of a fight, and you need to dig deep in terms of stamina, in terms of pulling through, pulling a victory. Those are the things that usually decides whether you win or lose. The fighters that I've seen that were very good, like technically gifted, as in if they somehow transfer those skills into other sport, they'll definitely be multi-millionaires, they'll definitely be famous. But unfortunately, there are many athletes that don't come from that supportive background, and you can see their frustrations. They never really truly meet their full potential. They're awesome, they're excellent, they have the willpower, the determination, but there's something missing. And from what I observe, it's typically a sort of compassion that really comes by the way of love. So a loving family, a loving home, could be even a relationship. Maybe having your wife or someone at your ringside screaming your name and driving you forward. That could be a factor. But when you don't have these things, often you won't reach your full potential. And it's a sad thing because there's massive regret when you never truly reach your potential as a person. And time is always ticking. There is no going back, there is no rewinds. And especially within the arena of an athlete who has a very short career, if this aspect is not complete, or if you fudge it, if you don't have that family that wants to support you or understand support, you're most likely going to fail and you're never going to get that time back. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity. So I don't know, I think some people might find me or some of my videos to be somewhat controversial in the sense that I'm asking questions that we won't really ask in the real world, you know, which really makes people think and reconsider stuff. I've made the statement in the past suggesting that many black folks should consider interracial relationships, and not for any sort of loser reasons like thinking that other people, other groups are better in some way, but it's more for, obviously, first and foremost, besides race, ethnicity, if you admire a person, if you respect a person, if you love a person, if you trust a person, you know, that is the rightful person to have a relationship with. But also, secondarily, it's a good opportunity to compare and contrast how your family is ran, you know, your native family, and also how other families are ran. The reason why that is important to me is that it will showcase and highlight issues in your family that might limit your potential or your ability to reach your full potential, your ability to succeed. Many times when you know that there's something wrong in the family, in your family, there is a level of anxiety or apprehension, but we often can't explain or describe what it is. We can't articulate it, but there's a feeling that, hey, something's a bit wrong. Maybe something's not fair. Maybe there's mistreatment. Maybe there's just simply a lack of care. Sometimes our parents simply don't care about us, you know? And that's often a shocker for many people. Sometimes the reality is our parents just didn't really care about us. And it's thoughts like that that some people find to be very taboo. But it's a very realistic situation. Most cases, people have kids without any sort of plan. And I don't expect people to plan every single detail before they have a kid or build a family. Often it is relatively random. But in a lot more cases, there are people that just didn't have the financial aspect, the preparation, the homes, but most importantly, the mindset, the mentality to be parents. And so in that situation, of course, there might be lingering regrets for having children or the inability to just simply be compassionate. Some people are just not built to be compassionate. Some people are just not empathetic type of people. And when you become a parent, you really need a lot of empathy, a lot of patience, because it's not just about you anymore, it's about your offspring and their needs. They're very vulnerable. You need to really put massive attention into the children. When you see how other cultures lead their families, it might, I'm not saying all the time, but it might open your eyes as to flaws within your own community, within your own family, and you might have ideas on how to update and revolutionize some aspects of that flaw in your own family. And I think that's very important. A lot of people don't want to talk about comparison. People think if you compare, you're a sellout, or, everyone doesn't have the same origins, so you can't make a true comparison. But I find that to be ignorance at best. I think people are just insecure and don't want to approach this situation. So it stands to reason to find solutions, to ask questions about these situations. Why is this happening? What is wrong? What is going wrong? But the problem is, many other people, again, because of maybe shame, insecurity, they don't want to compare. They don't want to ask the question. They don't want to consider perhaps they have it wrong. And so the cycle continues. A lot of black kids will grow up late bloomers, missing their true potential, never reaching what they could become as a human being in their one lifetime. It's quite tragic when you think about it. And this is why topics like these are very important. But what do you think? Let me know your thoughts below. I'll catch you in the next one.